What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I know I took a little bit of a break and brought you guys that Halloween episode. It's a little bit different for the channel, but we had a lot of fun making it, and yeah, good time. We have a track event coming up in about 2 weeks, and I need to get the S2000 ready for that event. So I'm gonna walk you guys through in this episode some of the stuff I'm gonna be doing to make sure this thing is mechanically perfect and not gonna have any issues at the track. I have a pretty big list of stuff to go through, including valve adjustment. I'm gonna be getting some new tires on here, alignment, and I got to throw my cat back on because there's a noise restriction at that track, and a couple other little things, but yeah, I'm gonna bring you guys along for the ride. All right, so first thing I'm gonna tackle is probably putting the cat back on. So the plan is I'm going to take out the front O2 sensor that's in it, that was for the stock ECU, the narrowband, and then move my wideband sensor that's in my test pipe right now up to the front. Hopefully that front O2 sensor, the stock one, will come out for me and isn't too much of a pain. And then I'm just gonna cap this one off. This rear O2 sensor is just for emissions crap, so don't really care about that with my Link ECU. So I'm gonna go ahead and jack up the car and hopefully get that done. I also did get brand new gaskets for this as well, but my fueling should be a lot better stuffing that wideband O2 sensor in the header itself instead of in the test pipe, because if you have any leaks in any of these connections, it can really throw off the AFR readings, and that's what the ECU actually does to dial in the long-term field trims. So if you guys watched my other video, hopefully you learned a little bit about Link ECUs and all that. Remy says hi too. Yeah, so the track that I'm going to be running on is I believe like 96 decibel limit. So that test pipe is definitely not going to work. Car is very loud, especially when it hits VTEC in the canyons. It's like ear piercing, even with this HKS dual I have on here. So a lot of people at that track too, they run just stock exhaust. So figured put my cap back on, and my car passed the sound limit when I just had the cat on. So I'm gonna just keep it like that and see how it does. Hopefully it doesn't really mess up the tune too much, but again, the long-term field trims should be able to correct for that. And I'm just gonna do some logging with the stock cat too, just before I run it on the track as well. Next thing I'm going to tackle is I need to trim the ends of these splitters. So basically when I would fully load up the car in a corner and this corner would squat down, I would hit this edge of the splitter on the ground itself. And I don't know if you can really see it rubbing a little bit, but yeah, I'm gonna just take a little bit off of there, and hopefully it looks pretty good. It actually sticks out a little bit further than the canard itself. So what I did was just took this guy, put it up flush against here, and just sort of made my line based on that. So it's nice and flush with my canard. See how much that scraped. I don't know if you can really see that on camera, but yeah, definitely a lot of scratch marks on the corners. All right, now we're gonna clean the edges up with a little bit of sanding. All right, so this is what it looks like now. Much sharper along the edge, lines up much better. So just for reference, this is how much I took off. So this whole piece, that's quite a bit. And see how far it was sticking out by the wheel? And yeah, that's the part that was hitting. So should be quite a bit better as far as rubbing goes. And I almost like this little squared off look right here. I'm almost gonna leave that because it kind of flows with the canard a little bit. But yeah, you just take your sander to the Alumilite, and then you can get that edge all nice and smooth. But yeah, I think kind kind of like that it doesn't flare out as much anymore. All right, so before I get my new tires on, I'm just checking the rear toe because I just did all the bushings and everything a couple weeks ago, and I tried to mark everything down and put everything back the way it went. Sometimes things don't go as planned and things get knocked out of adjustment. It happens, but I usually measure these in millimeter instead of inches because I find it a little bit easier to work with and more accurate. And got these long acre toe plates and checked out pretty good. I think it's within like, I don't know, half a millimeter, if that. So yeah, pretty good. I'm gonna check the front out too. Next thing I'm moving on to is doing a valve adjustment. I did a valve adjustment last week and the results were very inconsistent. I could hear a couple valves were super ticky and all the others were quiet. So I'm gonna go through again this week and I'm gonna use a different method for doing the valve adjustment on this. So I'm gonna take my feeler gauge and I'm gonna go one size bigger, stick it in between and tighten down the adjuster screw until it's actually tight against the feeler gauge, and then tighten it all down, pull that out. It should be right in spec, and there's not any screwing around with getting the feeler gauge in there and, oh, does it have any, resistance when you're sliding it across? None of that. That's a very inconsistent method, and I found in the forums that that's just a better way to do it. Because with the feeler gauge, if it's not angled perfectly correctly in between the actual valve spring and the rocker, and you try to slide it across, you'll get more resistance and it won't actually feel like it's adjusted properly. So I'm gonna try that and see how it does. After all that's finished, I never actually verified base timing on this motor, although that's one of the first things you should probably do when you install an aftermarket ECU. So when I installed the Link, we just started tuning right away. So I have a timing light and I'm gonna hook up this little flasher. This goes in the spark plug hole and then that just plugs into your coil pack. And then you can actually hook up a old school timing light. And there are there's 3 different timing marks on this crank pulley. I need to see which one is 0 degrees, -5 degrees, and +5 degrees, I believe, are the 3 marks. And they're color coded. It's gonna be a little bit tough to see down there because I have the supercharger set up, but I think if I just barely go in between here, I should be able to see down there, hopefully, and see the timing marks. But let's get that valve adjustment done and we'll work on to some other stuff. The other thing I'm gonna do with the tune is adjust my VTEC again. I feel like it's still not really in the right spot. Although I do need a dyno this car, it just kind of falls flat on its face when it's ramping into VTEC. And a lot of people are saying you want to log where your boosted application is actually coming into positive pressure in your manifold. And that's where you also want to gauge your VTEC. So we're gonna do some logging, see where that crossover point is, where it starts building positive pressure, and then adjust that VTEC. Some other things, yesterday, while I was cutting this, I found a couple spots where that splitter, some of the mounts, some of the hardware and everything, it was almost rounding itself out to the point where the splitter could just rip itself out. So I put some oversized washers in there, so we're not gonna have any drama at the track and have the splitter rip off. And I did check the hardware that actually mounts the canards as well. I put red Loctite on all those, and it's actually been pretty stable since. This is a fiberglass bumper, and it is actually starting to crack in a couple spots down here just because there's so much stress between the mounts and the canards and everything. It's all just interlocked, and when you have downforce, there's just so much force acting upon this thing that I think eventually we're gonna get some much bigger cracks than that. But luckily, this whole bumper has PPF on it, paint protection film, and it probably holds it together a little bit better. Some of these little spiderweb cracks are showing up, but only time will tell. So I think once this bumper deteriorates enough, I don't think I'm gonna end up fixing it. I'm probably just gonna end up with an AP2 bumper. That's my AP1 bumper that came with it. That thing's a total piece of crap, but I really want to get like an AP2 bumper and then put the CR lip on it. Super basic, and I'll probably just add like either this splitter or make a new splitter for the AP2 bumper. I mean, this looks cool and everything, but after getting it all done, I'm a little bit nervous about this fiberglass situation. And then eventually, you could see the trunk is bowing from this wing. I do want to get that somewhat corrected. I know there's people that actually make mounts in the trunk that go all the way from the floor of the trunk and mount and meet up with this. So you have like a little bit of pressure for the wing so that trunk doesn't bow like that. Every S2000 does this. I'm not too worried about it. The actual trunk, I believe, is still sealed just in case it rains. But yeah, that's another area I want to address. And then I did actually ceramic coat the whole car. It does help a little bit at the track, I feel like, especially when you get that really hot rubber. If you're chasing someone and you get those little rubber pieces that fling off of other people's tires and stick to your paint, I feel like it's a little bit of a protection, but the paint is pretty crap on this car anyways. You could see there's a couple little big gashes. I think this car got keyed at one point and I tried to just blend that in, but yeah, I'm either gonna wrap this car or get it fully repainted and then like PPF the whole car almost. So I had ordered tires for this thing. I believe it's like trackdaytire.com or something like that. I'm actually gonna try to get a sponsorship through them. And I believe with the code you can get, you buy 3 tires and get 1 free. So that's kind of nice. I actually ended up using someone else's code, but be kind of nice to get sponsored. But I ended up getting the Continental Extreme Contact Force tires. They're a 200 tread wear, and they're like a race endurance tire. So they're not like a super 200 where they wear very quickly but have the highest level of grip. These have a little bit less grip, but they should last a little bit longer because I do drive this car in the canyons a lot, and I want them to last a little bit longer. This is actually one of my first times being on a 200 tread wear tire. On my old Evo, I had tried like a like a 110 or 120 tread wear tire, which is crazy, but I drove it out in the canyons like 2 or 3 times and the tread was like almost halfway gone. So hopefully these 200 endurance tires will last me a bit of time. I do have the 2 track days with this, and I'm actually gonna do a track day with the M4 as well on a bigger track. And I'm gonna run the Advan Apexes on this car. Those are a 300 tread wear, but that's also my daily driver, so I want them to last. But should be interesting to see comparison-wise what these 2 cars are like on the track. So last time I was at Arizona Motorsport Park, and this car was almost completely stock, and I had the Indy 500 tires on it. I ran a 156, I believe, and I'd say that was pretty good. I had my rear wing and I had no aero in the front, and yeah, just a 300 tread wear tire, and I broke 2 minutes at amp, which is very, very quick. I believe the most advanced group you can run with Pro Auto, they recommend running a minimum of like 2 minutes and 2 seconds to be in the most advanced group. So I was well within that limit, which is pretty cool. There are guys that they have either, I think they're AP1 or AP2. That one guy, Vince, that was on the channel. We reviewed his yellow S2000, his AP1. I think he was running pretty close to like a 150 at amp, which is cooking it. So I want to try to get probably like somewhere close to like the 150 range as far as lap time goes. That'd be pretty sweet. I think if I could break like 150, that's as fast as like the actual race cars. So be pretty neat. And then maybe next season or season after, I'll actually race this car for real and not just do the track days, because eventually I do want to get more competitive and see where it goes, like career-wise. I think I'm a fairly good driver. I have a lot of seat time with the sim racing stuff. I've been playing sim racing stuff since I was like 8 years old, and I drive the Canyons like almost every weekend, a couple times a weekend, just to get a lot of seat time. So I'd say I have a lot more seat time than most people that actually race on the track. And that experience is, I think, done pretty well. I mean, for me to run that sub 2 minute amp for my first time out, it's pretty good. So I'd say I'm a fairly good driver, but definitely want to get some more seat time at the track. Okay, now that that's done, I last time broke this cam position sensor plug at the top, so I need to replace that. That's the coil pack, this one. So see how the little tab on the top is missing? When the engine's vibrating, that could back off, and then you lose cam position sensor, and then your motor dies. So I have a replacement. This is from KSV Looms. I bought my other one from there too. They do a pretty good job of providing OEM connectors. So all I have to do is pop that little plug out and then take the pins out of that one. I don't have to actually repin it because I'm just replacing the plug, so it should be pretty simple. All right, so I'll show you guys the method I was using for adjusting the valves. So intake, this is the spec. So I actually went on the higher side, stuck it in between there, tightened it down with the adjuster screw, and when it's tight and you take it out, you should be around 0.09 of an inch, and the exhaust is between 0.1 and 0.11. So I went 0.012, and when you tighten it down again, it'll drop down 1 point, and you should be within this range. The other thing I do is just make little dots for each section of cam that I'm doing, and I'll circle it when I do the adjustment, and I'll put an X through it when I actually tighten down the lock nuts with the proper torque specs. So I make sure I do everything and they're all done. So that's it. All right, so I got my timing light hooked up just to show you guys how I did this. I have a spark checker kit, which has like these pieces. Not exactly sure what this is for, but the main thing is this little light right here, this diode. You connect that to your coil pack, and that actually connects to your spark plug. and then you can hook your reluctor up to your timing light through a normal spark plug wire, because you can't do it off a coil pack wire. It won't trigger the timing light. So I got my timing light here. I'm gonna be connecting the positive and negative to power that thing. And then if you look down here, it's gonna be tough to see. Let me see if I can focus on that point. All right, so see the white and red marks? And then that's actually gonna line up with a arrow on the motor itself, right about there. So when the motor's running, I'm gonna lock timing at 5 degrees at idle, and it should line up with the red mark. The white mark is 0 degrees or top dead center. So the spec for these cars is that when you're idling, it lines up with that red mark. So that's how you know you verified base timing. So if I do need to make a correction, it's actually gonna be plus or minus in the ECU. I can adjust for that for an offset. All right, I don't know if this is gonna show up on camera, but there you go. There's that red mark. All right, so timing looks good. There's no timing drift. So timing drift is when you lock in, let's say like 5 or 10 degrees, and you rev it to like about 5,000 RPM. The timing could walk a little bit, either retard or advance. So you would actually come into the ECU and change the, there's a delay setting. I don't have that screen up, but yeah, so in the Link ECU, you would come over to triggers, calibrate, and then you click on this little wrench, and then it pops up a screen where you can lock in the timing, change your offset, and there's your walk delay compensation. So pretty neat. Got everything dialed in and should be in good shape. So it's very important to set base timing when you're installing a standalone ECU, because let's say you're trying to push the timing to the absolute limit and you're already potentially 5 or 10 degrees too advanced from where the base calibration says it is. So let's say at idle, you're at 10 degrees and the ECU is commanding 5, there's a little bit of a sync issue. So as you start pushing timing, you could go way over your limit. It's important to check that very first step. These are the Continental Extreme Contact Force tires, and they're a 200 treadwear endurance tire. We're gonna see how these guys do. The sidewall is actually very, very stiff, so it should help with turn-in and steering response. But never actually run down to a 200 treadwear before on the track, so hoping this extra grip will be pretty good. It does have these wear indicators that are pretty neat on the edges of the tires where the tire wears the most, so you can keep an eye on when you have, depleted treads. So yeah, excited to try these out. Gonna get these mounted today. And if you guys are interested, I do have a sponsor with trackdaytire.com. So if you enter code TIREDEAL23 in the sponsorship code box, you'll get a discount and free shipping on your order. So they don't have a huge selection of tires, but they are all track related. So if you're looking for Hoosiers or a more performance or track oriented tire, you can use my code there and save a little bit of money. So while my new tires are being put on, because I don't trust my cars at shops, I'm taking my stuff for joyrides and such. Decided to clean out all the wheel wells and everything. You can see all my new bushings that I installed in the last video. But yeah, everything's looking good under there. There's a lot of crap that came out of those wheel wells. And I did a nut and bolt check too on everything, make sure it's all good for the track. But looking pretty good under there.